Hey everybody, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to launch your first ever webinar online. Now subscribe to my channel if you like videos on how to grow your coaching business. We release new ones every single week. Hey everybody, my name is Armin Shaffi and I built a multi-six-figure life coaching business, and now I spend my time helping other coaches build their business as well. Now look, if you've ever been thinking about building, creating, launching your own webinar because you've heard that a webinar is a ticket to everything, then first of all, you're right, because a webinar is. Then once you build one good webinar, then you can automate your marketing pretty much forever. But if you're in the process right now of creating a webinar, doing a live launch, or creating an evergreen webinar, and you're kind of stuck, or you want to know how to do it properly so you don't mess it up, then this video is for you. Now, quickly just to let you know, I've done this the wrong way and I've done it the right way. Currently right now, I have a webinar that is consistently producing multiple six figures in a month, and has literally created for me freedom in my business, financially and time, because I've delegated one evergreen webinar and it's just booking calls and generating leads for me every single day for my coaching program. Now, if that's where you want to get to, that's great. But the first thing you got to do is a live webinar, which is what I did as well. And so a long time ago, I did live beta versions of my webinar before I automated it. You want to make sure it converts and it works before you create an evergreen version of that webinar. So if you're in the middle of launching a webinar, which is more of a live launch, then this video is for you. I'm going to be talking about the big mistakes, the pitfalls of doing this, okay, if you've never done it before, and try to save you months of time, because that's what I kind of wasted the first time, not knowing what I'm doing. And I'm going to show you kind of the very bird's eye strategy view of how you should launch a webinar successfully, okay? So I remember when I first got into the webinar world, I was doing speaking events, okay? So I would actually do seminars. And I'm like, yeah, webinar is the same thing, right? Yes and no, because online is a different game. And doing a webinar is different, in front of a camera, not in front of an audience. So I took my confidence and my ego, and I'm like, I'm going to figure this out on my own. And I went out and I spent months, okay, developing a webinar, like 12-hour days. I didn't know it was going to take that long, by the way. I thought it was just simple slides. But I realized as soon as you get into building webinars, the slides, like, it takes a lot of time and detail and focus to think about what you're going to say, why you're going to say it. Is it everything you got to say? Do I take this part out? Do I keep this part in? There's a lot of intricate details that are the make or break of the webinar. And so for me, I spent like months just preparing for this huge launch for a webinar. And my entire plan was to go out and create this webinar, build the course and the program I was going to sell with the webinar, and then just go live launch it and organically get people to attend. Now, here's what happened. I went out, I created this webinar. It took me literally weeks and weeks to develop the slides alone, and then months to create the thing I was going to sell at the end of it, to get myself prepared for the launch. And like, it was a lot, okay? It was about 2 months, probably a few months that I spent doing this. I spent like 10 grand in video marketing. Like, it was just crazy. And I went out and I launched, and my first ever webinar, I think I had like 20 people show up, and like 2 people bought this $1,000 offer I sold. And I'm like, man, this is good. This is awesome. Yeah, great. Next week, I tried to do it again. I think like 12 people showed up, and 1 person bought. I'm like, at least it's making sales, but why is it less? Well, what are we doing wrong here? The next one I did, I think like 7 people showed up. Nobody bought. And then I did another one a week later. So in a month's span, I did 4 live webinars. In the 4th one, 2 people showed up, and they were my staff. So it was a no-show, and it was just a huge failure. I hit this huge roadblock, just a massive wall, and I got super self-conscious and insecure about my ability to do this. And I'm like, what could be possibly wrong? So I went out and I went in the ClickFunnels community, and I started to look up experts that are really good at this webinar game. And I spent $1,000 an hour to get consulting on my webinar. And so the first thing they came in and they told me, like, first of all, this entire thing is wrong. I'm like, what do you mean it's wrong? They're like, who helped you with this? I'm like, no one. I did this by funnel hacking and seeing other people's stuff. And they looked at me and they go, your messaging is completely off. Like, you're talking like 17 different audiences. Your offer is not clear at all. And this is not even compliant, what you're saying on your landing page for your webinar. I'm saying to all I just paid $1,000 for this person to tell me there's a dozen things wrong with what I did on my own. And I learned my lesson the hard way, because I spent 3 months trying to do it on my own, and I hit like this massive failure, and I didn't know how to swallow it because I couldn't admit that I didn't know what I was doing. And so I realized when I look back now, there was a lot of things I did wrong that have messed up the webinar for me, even though I got 2 or 3 sales. By the way, I just want to make this a disclaimer. Just because you get a few sales doesn't mean the webinar is good. Doesn't mean it was done right. Because when you put that thing on evergreen or automation, or even try to do it over and over like I did, it will eventually decline. It won't work. So having, like, I could even arguably say the first 3 sales I got anyways were in my warm network. So I don't even know if the webinar actually worked with someone who doesn't know me, which means it didn't work at all, okay? Because I think they heard of me or they knew me. So for you to avoid such a failure like this, I just want to talk about some of the mistakes that people make when they're launching a webinar or creating a webinar, okay? So here are some common mistakes you need to avoid. I'm going to write it down over here, okay? Number 1, first big mistake I made was having no market research. Let me explain to you what I mean. I went out and I built my entire webinar off of what I thought was good, not what my audience thought. Huge mistake. If you look at any business or company in the world, when they're developing a new product, what do they do first? They test the market. So because I wasn't a established online entrepreneur, I didn't know this stuff. I was just a really good speaker. I was a good artist. Like many of you, you're a good coach. You know how to help people, but you might not know how to do marketing and business and sales and all these things. And so I had to swallow, a big pill just to understand I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, it was really hard for me to put my ego aside, humble myself, realize I don't know what I'm doing. But I thought I did. And the first huge mistake I made was having no market research. Okay. And what I mean by that is I didn't go out and ask. I didn't test my content. I just made a whole webinar, the outline, the titles, the content, the stories, everything. I thought I knew what my audience wanted. Little did I know I didn't know anything about what my audience wanted. Not only that, I was confused myself with what I was giving to my audience and who my audience was. So I had zero clarity in my marketing strategy because I had no market research. The next big mistake I made was having no audience before I launched. Now this one is the one that killed me, okay? And the reason is because, like I told you, I did my first one, like 20 people showed up. Now I thought 100, 200 people were going to show up, right? I already had a successful seminar business. I'm like, I have a lot of brands. They'll show up. Nobody showed up. No one cared, okay? I'm like, damn, like, it's a little harsh, world. Why'd you got to slap me in the face like this? And I'm like, man, it doesn't matter who I am. When it comes to the webinar game and the online game, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't even matter if you've done a business for 25 years offline, because when you go online, you're a baby now, okay? It's something I had to learn. So I launched my webinar hoping people would just show up. It's the old saying, build it and they'll come. No, they won't. No one's coming. Let me give you a heads up. Nobody's coming. Don't hope. Hope is not a strategy, okay? Hoping is not a strategy. You need to have a calculated plan on how you're going to get people to see this webinar. And another thing, I look back now, I'm like, I was dumb. I built a whole webinar to organically send people to it. That makes no sense to me. Why on earth, like, I understand some people do live webinars, but that just defeats the purpose of building a webinar. Why would I build this 45-minute sales presentation that helps me get clients and still work on it organically? The whole point of a webinar is to replace you doing organic marketing. That's at least what I believe. Not saying you should stop organic forever and not post online and all that. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying it should take the portion of marketing off my hands. So I'm like, man, the only reason why I make a webinar is to automate it so that I could just send people to it through advertising, through marketing. But if I have to get people to show up to it, what's the difference between me doing that and a live event? And I'd rather do a live event. More connection, more fun. So I realized I also had the wrong strategy in mind when I was trying to make my webinar and sell it and use it, okay? And the third thing I did, which was, first was market research. I didn't know what my audience wanted, so I put a bunch of content in the webinar that I didn't know would actually work. Third thing was no audience. I thought people would just show up if I just build it. Huge mistake, okay? Huge mistake. And the third huge mistake I did was having no help. Okay, no help. That was probably the biggest, because if I had that, I would have known these 2 things should have been done properly. And the other things that, these are the 3 major things, but there are so many other intricate things I did wrong. If I had help, like if I went for $1,000, paid a consultant, paid an expert to just look at my stuff first, I would have probably dodged 3 months of doing it wrong. Okay, now, I've shared in other videos, I think, my story about how I went through depression after this because I had a huge loss. Like, it was, my company had stopped. I thought hopefully this would make me enough money to stop my events. And it was just it was a shit show, okay? And so I went through like 5 months of depression after that. Now, that's for another video. I think I've shared it in my webinar. But for now, I just want to let you know, this caused me a lot of issues. Just doing it on my own, making these mistakes. So how do you fix it? Let me tell you right now. First of all, obviously, you want to get market research, okay? Let me put it here. Get market research. You need to get market research. Do not touch or make one slide until you got market research, until you know what the audience wants, how they think, what the actual offers, who the audience is, because you can't talk to everyone. If you talk to everyone, you talk to no one. The next thing you got to do is obviously get an audience, okay? If you got an audience, it doesn't matter how good your webinar is. No one shows up. No one cares, okay? Maybe my webinar was good. I didn't have enough people watch it. And by the way, I was convinced on that. I was convinced that not enough people saw it. But then when I paid the experts to see my webinar, they go, it doesn't matter if they saw it. This is also done wrong. And you think it worked just because 3 people bought something, which were in your warm network, which means no stranger bought this. So your webinar didn't actually convert anyone. I'm like, man, it's cold slap in the face, but you're right, right? And the third thing was get help, obviously. Here's the reason why I'm saying get help. Look, I don't care if you look at this and you go, Armin's indirectly pitching me to hire him and work with me. Look, so what? What's the problem with that? If I know if you worked with me, I can help you build a webinar that literally replaces marketing and sales for you forever. If I knew I can automate your business or help you start and grow and automate your business in coaching and give you a life that you've always dreamed about, if I know my system could do that, if I know how to help you do that, what's the problem with me telling you to get help? Now, I don't care if you work with me or someone else, but if you're thinking like, well, this is a pitch, like this is an indirect, of course it is. I believe in what I do. I know what I can do. I know what a webinar's power is. It's literally retired me. I work because I want to every day. It's helped me grow a company, provide for families. It's helped me help hundreds of people around the world. Of course I know the power of this thing if you do it right. Of course I'm going to tell you to get help because I know the cost of when you don't. This was the cost. Here's what this did to me. All this, hold on. Use the red one, okay? Actually black, right? Wow, that is a terrible, whatever you call these things. This costed me 3 months. 3 months plus 5 months of depression, okay? That's 8 months. Almost the whole year of my life went because I made these tiny mistakes because I thought I don't need help. Now, if you're seeing that, you go, well, listen, there's only 2 types of thoughts you get when you see get help, okay? You either think, well, I can figure this out on my own. Okay, no problem. Like, you're going to learn either from learning from other people's mistakes, or you're going to be me and just go and figure it out on your own. It's really up to you. I believe both is necessary because I value now my coaches. I value the people I pay because I understand what it costs me if I don't, right? The other thing you could be thinking is like, I could save the money. Like whatever Armin or someone else is charging to help me on this, I could save that money. If you're thinking that, I'm just going to be a coach for a moment for you. You have bigger problems than a webinar. If you genuinely value money over the time you're going to spend, knowing if someone has done this before, can walk you through it quickly, knowing you will spend time longer. There's no way you believe you'll do it faster without help. Because if that was the case, you wouldn't be on this video right now. You wouldn't be watching how to launch your first webinar video. You just go do it, right? So to some degree, we all know without help, it will take longer. We know it costs something, maybe not money, but it costs time. Knowing it's going to cost you more time, and knowing, as you hear this, that you're valuing dollars over minutes, there's a fundamental problem with your mindset. And that alone will kill your business before a bad webinar does. I'm telling you from experience. I'm telling you as a friend right now, being genuinely loving to you when I say this. I used to save money too, and now I look like I'm like how dumb I was to value $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 maybe that I would have paid for some program or some person to help me properly. That I had the money. I was sitting there, and some of you are like, I don't have the money. Listen, I've had times when I didn't have money, I borrowed the money. Everyone has money. It's a matter of resourcefulness. If you care enough, you'll find a way. If your family member is dying in a hospital and the doctor said you need to come up with 10 grand, you won't say I don't have the money, let him die. So it's a matter of motivation. Is it more important enough for you to go figure the money out? So don't talk to me about that. But what I will say this, I remember back then I'm like, I'll save the money. I'll save the money instead of buying a $1,000 course, $5,000 program, $10,000 coaching, $20,000 consult. I'll save the money. And it costed me 8 months. Man, I would pay anything to get the 8 months back. I'd pay anything to get these 8 months back. So I learned from wisdom and experience and maturity that money is not more important than time. And if you believe it is, there's a fundamental problem with your thinking. I don't care if this webinar does good for you or not. Your business won't last. That might be a bold statement. Hate me or not, love me or hate me, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to speak it when I believe it. If you're valuing your money over time, there's a fundamental problem with your thinking. You need to get coaching on your thinking alone before you get on marketing. And I know because I work with lots of coaches. And I know how hard it was for them to invest, how hard it was for them to start. And they come and be like, I can't believe I was about to do this all alone. Look at all the moving parts. Here's the other reason why you need to get help. There's too many moving variables when it comes to a launch, marketing, and webinars for you to even try to figure it out on your own. It's not like you're baking a cake. Even that's very complicated. I'd probably mess it up. Wouldn't you mess up a cake? Imagine baking a cake, how many ingredients there are, how many steps there are. Probably is pretty hard. Even if you follow the instructions, you could do it wrong. A little bit more of a dash of salt, and you got a shitty tasting cake. So it's not something simple. Simple things you can figure out, like you buy an IKEA furniture, you'll probably figure that out, right? I recently moved. I got IKEA furniture. I was going to hire someone. I'm like, man, I'll figure this out. It's quick. But you know what? It would have cost me $60 to get a professional person to come do a job for me and take care of it. I'm like, man, $60 is less expensive than the hour I would have spent. But I'm like, you know what? I just want, in this case scenario, I want to have the experience of knowing I built this myself. So I'm like, there's more value to me in terms of doing it. Plus, it would have probably cost me an hour just to try to find the person, hire them, wait for them. So I'm like, I don't have time for this. So see, I valued my time again over money, or else I would have spent the money. And what I did was I took it out. I'm like, it's 4 steps. Just put these screws together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, this is something you could figure out. This is something I didn't even do it to save $60. I did it because I wanted to save another 2 days of time I had to wait for the person to show up. I'm like, I don't want to wait. I got to work. It's a desk. Okay. But not this. You don't try to figure out a business that's not figure outable qualified. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you can figure out how much food to put in the fishbowl. Probably figure out how to do laundry. Probably one YouTube video. You guys can't categorize building an entire online business, a webinar, growing an audience, market research as that category. Like, and if you do, again, fundamental problem with your thinking. You think this is a lot easier than it is. It's not. Some marketer lied to you. Made you believe it is. So you're like, why would I hire somebody? I know, because I was that guy, okay? I used to think it's easy, so let me figure it out. It cost me 8 months. I'm like, it's not easy. I would have rather paid now, like 8 months ago, for this. So let's talk about how to fix it. 4 steps. These are the mistakes. Look, this will kill you before even what I'm about to show you. 4 steps, okay? 4 steps to launch. Let's talk about it. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. I went on a tiny mini rant there because I love you. I care about you. If you're following my videos and watching my YouTube channel, if you consider booking a call before, I want you to know I actually care about your process. I've been in your shoes, so I'm trying to help you. So you might not like it, but just being real with you. Okay, where are we going? Let's do green. Ready? Number 1, get market research. How? It's called an ask campaign. Now, that's what it's called, ask campaign, okay? This is how we teach our coaches in our program how to get market research. One of the ways is launching an ask campaign, okay? It's a campaign where you go out to the marketplace of your audience, your market of people, for your niche, and you ask them questions specifically to find out what's going on in their mind so you know what to put in the webinar, because you want to not only sell a coaching program that they say they need help with, like things that they need help with in your program, but also your presentation is based on all the things they are thinking about, things they are worried about. You put that in there, overcome those. Now this, again, very intricate step-by-step process we give in the program. You could also just do a vague version of it. You can right now go buy Expert Secrets from Russell Brunson, and he will show you how to do a very vague version. I know because I saw that there first. And then when I got into other programs and masterminds, I realized there's way better ways of doing this and way more detailed ways of doing it so you get better results. So that's what I developed in my program. It's step by step. We give you templates. We show you what to do if this happens or that happens, or how to even read the questions or the answers you get from people, because they might be vague answers. There's a lot of issues that could show up that coaching helps you solve. But if you're trying to get the idea of it, Expert Secrets, Russell Brunson, he shows you how to launch an ask campaign and run an ask survey so you can get people's response and make a course or coaching program or a webinar out of it. So that's how you get market research. It's a very quick way. The second thing you do is grow an audience. Okay, how you do that? You build, the best way I found is a Facebook group. Okay, you grow an audience by creating a Facebook group. You could do it on Instagram. You could maybe on Instagram followers, maybe LinkedIn group. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I've done. And time and time, what I teach my coaches is growing a Facebook group. It's free, it's quick, it's easy, and it works. It works. Okay. If you think Facebook's dead, check your facts. Facebook makes more millionaires that I know of right now just by creating a simple Facebook group and then literally funneling people into it and then offering and doing live webinars in there and all that. So grow a Facebook group so that you can, because it's free, scratch it. You can watch a lot of free videos as well. In my program, I actually have a step-by-step on how to set everything up. I even give scripts on what to put in your description, all that. Again, making it easier for you to do this so you can get through it faster and save your time and launch. So once you have your audience grown and you got a Facebook group, before you start creating your webinar slides or anything, look at what I'm doing in order. Then you go and you create the actual slides. You create the webinar and you make sure you base it off the market research you've gotten from your audience and you surveying your group. So based off market research, you'll know what your audience wants. You create a group around it so people start funneling into that and you start surveying them. And you find out by talking to your audience directly what things to put in the actual webinar. Then you create the webinar. If you notice, I did the opposite here. I created the webinar. I didn't do any market research, didn't grow any audience. I just built the slides out. Then I tried to launch it and get an audience for it. And then I found out afterwards all the market research wrong. Okay, there was no market research. I found out all the information is wrong. So once you create the webinar here, then you launch. And by launch, it's very simple. And I'll show you a strategy of how you do this. Essentially, you hold a an event in your group, and then you invite everyone in your group to the webinar, to the free training. And that's your webinar. That's literally what we teach in my program, so you can validate your webinar before you automate it, because automation is really where the key to freedom is and all that stuff in your business. But to launch it, you do it in your group, so you have a live audience. And then if you want to keep doing lives, I mean, you could run ads and all that stuff. But again, here's my personal opinion. If you try to go into ads, Facebook ads, to run an audience to a live webinar, it's like you're using the system for the wrong thing. It's like using a car. What's a good example? Buying a car to walk your dog. Like, you could do it, but it's just not what it's for. It's used for traveling distances that you can't do with walking. You get what I'm saying? That's a really good example. Really good analogy. So if you're going to build a webinar, okay, if you're going to build a webinar, you want to make sure you do it with the goal to automate it, because that's where real scale happens. And if you're going to get an audience, like if you're going to go into ads, make sure it's to an automated funnel. With a webinar, it's automated, because why would you run into a live webinar? After you're done, it's all done. You got to do it all over again. So it's no different than having a high-paying job. Okay. So if you're seeing this and it's a little overwhelming, or it makes sense, it's clear, it helped you out a lot, drop a comment down below. Let me know what part of this helped you the most. But if you're also watching this and you really want help with your webinar, with launching your webinar, creating a webinar so you can replace your marketing and start focusing on coaching more and let your webinar do all the lead generation for you, then you can go ahead and book a call with my team using the link provided with this video. And we'll get on the phone and see if it's a right fit for us to work together. And we can give you our state-of-the-art proven webinar system and the webinar template. I give you my exact proven presentation template that has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales for my coaching business. I literally give it to you in the program, step by step, and a whole training on walking you through every slide, so you know, plug and play what to put in there, but why you're putting it in there, so you become good at this. So I hope this really helped. I'll see you in the next video. Go on and make the rest of your day the